He has to look for a scapegoat, so therefore India and China. It's wrong. And what Donald Trump is doing is he's manufacturing an exit strategy. And we saw this clearly at his UN General Assembly speech. He was preparing the ground for what he has decided is to walk away from Ukraine, which he said he was going to solve in one day. In fact, if you go back to his campaign promises, he said he'd probably solve it before he actually came into office. Then when he came into office, it was just a matter of a day. And gradually over the last 9 months, he's decided that he can't bring about peace on his terms. He has to look for a scapegoat, so therefore India and China, despite the fact that the U.S. administration asked India to make sure that they did, in fact, buy oil to stabilize the situation. Otherwise, you'd have seen sharp increases, which would have affected the United States. You have a situation where India was asked by the United States, in fact, lauded for its role in stabilizing oil prices, because as I said earlier, if you take out Russian oil, the price of oil around the world would skyrocket. There would be shortages. You'd have developed countries paying huge additional amounts for oil, and you would see poor countries being victimized. The United States wanted to keep the oil away from Europe. Ironically, of course, much of the oil that is being sold, at least to India, is ending up where? In Europe. But, you know, the hypocrisy of this is incredible. Here's the United States, which increased its purchases of yellow cake, which is uranium, and also strategic metals from Russia by over 23% last year, telling the world to stop trading with Russia. So under the bigger bully theory, if BRICS came together, went to Washington, D.C., and said, Donald Trump, you have an ultimatum. You can, tax your people, or as you say, tariff them as much as you want, but you will not get the rest of the world to engage in a colonial game of cynically bidding against each other for your favor. That is not going to happen. If in fact they did that, Donald Trump would have no choice but to do a taco. Trump always chickens out. And in fact, it'll only take a couple of moments, and then we can just know that everything else he said was in fact a lie or some combination of imagination and speculation. So much for getting a Nobel Peace Prize. So much for having his face carved into Mount Rushmore. Instead, he will be the laughingstock who has led America down the wrong path, and he will be remembered as the worst president in history, or at least, let us say, setting the lowest bar for anybody else who comes after him. When you ask questions about whether there's a strategy or some sort of policy behind what Trump has done, no. He is a savant when it comes to the issue of publicity. He has done nothing, despite his many, many claims to have settled 7 wars. They haven't even stopped fighting in many instances, and in some instances they never started fighting. It's just his pathological desire to be recognized as somebody great. Donald Trump's pronouncements have nothing to do with the truth. China had an excellent relationship, and still does, with Ukraine. They have continued to support non-violent activities, as the same with Russia. They are not providing any kind of military hardware. People talk about dual use. Well, I can show you a butter knife. It has 2 uses. I can butter my bread with it, or I could attempt to attack you with it. Everything has 2 uses or more. So this idea that the West likes to accuse China of being the bad guy here, when in fact we know exactly what the circumstances were, in terms of the West cynically trying to create a government, a puppet government in Ukraine, and it going badly. America does not brook competition. So the idea of Russia and Europe getting together was something to be avoided at all costs. And the United States, through its emissaries and through its propaganda campaigns, campaigned to make sure that that would never happen. Other actors who said that it's time to put away the 600 years of colonialism and to embark on a new era that emphasizes civilizational values, values that are inclusive. They talk about security of countries, having a road to development and taking care of your people, and also respect for each country, no matter how large or small. It should be, it's a sovereign nation and it must be respected. So we need a new era, and it's time for people like Donald Trump to go away and for more rational people to arrive and realize the multipolar world is here. I don't think that Zelensky or Trump or, frankly, anybody in the EU is going to change anything. You have an EU which is divided. You have a Ukraine which is completely dependent on arms, whether from the United States in terms of origin or donation, or from Europe, the EU, in terms of giving them, because they don't have an economy anymore, per se. I feel sorry for the Ukrainian people. They have been used, in essence, as pawns in a cynical play by a country, the United States, who is just determined to maintain its hegemony. Unfortunately, they don't see that. They have a leader who only thinks that he can win by force of arms against a far superior country that, in the end, has nuclear weapons and cannot be defeated. So, once again, there is no end game. There's just Donald Trump making excuses.